Hello, this is Chuck Dunning, and welcome to my presentation, The Mystic Tie and Spiritual Union. The content that you're about to hear is from the first chapter of my fourth book, The Mystic Tie and the Way of Oneness, Masonry's Mystical Quest for Unity, Wholeness, and Harmony. In this presentation, I am obviously going to be dealing with the spiritual side of Freemasonry. In keeping with Blue Lodge tradition, I'm not presenting a specific religious perspective, let alone proselytizing for a particular religion. However, I frequently reference the sacred writings of a variety of religions, a number of religious authorities, and spiritually oriented thinkers from different schools, traditions, and walks of life. Throughout it all, of course, I am expressing my own views and how they align with these sources. I am not speaking for any Masonic organizations except where I specifically quote their own publications. On that note, about frequent quotes, please be prepared for an unusually large number of them. The intention for including them is to provide plenty of evidence backing the ideas I'm promoting, to demonstrate that they are not just my own musings, but that I am one of many, both inside and outside the fraternity, who found these ideas crucial to the meaning we find in existence and in Masonry. In effect, all the quotes are foundation stones for the rest of the book. The phrase mystic tie may well be the invention of our poet brother, Robert Burns, when he penned these lines at the beginning of his poem, Farewell to the Brethren of St. James Lodge, in 1786. Quote, Adieu, a heart-warm fond adieu, dear brothers of the mystic tie, ye favored enlightened few, companions of my social joy. End quote. Whatever depth Burns might have personally found in those two words, they have become a popular symbol in Masonic tradition. As such, they are open to investigation and deeper contemplation. So, is the mystic tie simply our feelings of brotherly affection and the obligations we vow to each other? Surely it is at least these, but we shall see that it can mean much more. Exploring meanings for the mystic tie, the Masonic Service Association's Short Talk Bulletin of October 1940 notes that part of it is our ritual. Quote, This golden chain of sounds, which die even as they are born, and yet which never cease sounding once they have been taken into the heart, they are a part of the mystic tie. End quote. It then goes on to add this piece. Quote, Friendship is a part of the mystic tie. That glory of life in which a man finds a man in whom he can trust, for whom he would labor, with whom he would live. Not the greatest poet who has yet lived has been able to define friendship. We know what it is, but we cannot explain it. Yet it is there, alive, vital, a part of lodge life, an integer in the whole, and so a part of the mystic tie. End quote. And the inscrutability of the nature of friendship leads to this recognition about the mystic tie. Quote, Mystery is a part of it. Indeed, is it not named for mystery? And Freemasonry is so filled with mysteries. From whence came it, this chain of fraternity, which began we know not when, and grew we know not how? And whither does it go? The one as much a mystery as the other. End quote. In further reflection on the mystery of the mystic tie, the article says, quote, None who have known it would think of denying the strength of the mystic tie. None who have its cord about their hearts would loose it. None can wholly comprehend it, none define, describe it. It exists, it works its gentle miracles, it is as mighty as it is intangible. End quote. Finally, the Short Talk Bulletin ends its contemplation on the mystic tie with a poem by Brother Carl Claudy, The Road. So many men before thy altars kneel, unthinkingly to promise brotherhood. So few remain humbly to kiss thy rood, with ears undeafened to thy mute appeal. So many find thy symbols less than real, thy teachings mystic, hard to understand. So few there are in all thy far-flung band to hold thy banner high and draw thy steel, and yet immortal and most mighty thou. What hath thy lore of life to let it live? What is the vital spark hid in thy vow? Thy millions learned as thy dear paths they trod, the secret of the strength thou hast to give. I am a way of common men to God. These references highlight that mystic evokes the quality of mystery. In this context, the poem ponders a vital spark, a secret strength in Masonry. And that question is answered by asserting that the craft is a way to God. This response is quite fitting, since the word mystic refers not merely to mystery in a general sense, but more specifically to spiritual mysteries. Thus, the mystic tie is not reducible to sentiments of affections or feelings of interpersonal connectedness and commitment, but rather is a divine mystery that inspires such attitudes. To better understand the implications of the mystic tie, let us look closer at the term mystic. Its origin is Greek, where the root word means to close or to conceal. Thus, mystes was the title of an initiate in the ancient Greek mystery religions, where hidden truths of life and the cosmos were dramatically revealed. Perhaps because of the ecstatic experiences induced within their rites, the term mysticism eventually became most broadly associated with any practices or beliefs pertaining to non-ordinary states of consciousness. However, in modern comparative religious studies, mysticism is more specifically about direct experience of ultimate reality. While conceptualizations and expressions of ultimate reality are understood to vary according to culture, religion, and individual abilities. As the most relevant case in point, within the Abrahamic religions from which Masonry arose, an experience of ultimate reality is traditionally described as union with God. And mystics are those persons who contemplate, seek, or open themselves to a state, knowledge, or realization of such union. In Middle Eastern monotheism, evidence of a long-held awareness of God's oneness with each of us and all of creation is easy enough to find. Consider these examples. Within the scriptures of Judaism, we find this. Then God said, "Let us make human beings so that they are like us." So God created human beings in his own likeness. He created them to be like himself. Then the Lord God formed a man. He made him out of the dust of the ground. God breathed the breath of life into him, and the man became a living person. That's from Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 27, and chapter 2, verse 7. I am the Lord, and there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. That's from Isaiah 45, verses 6 through 7. This is what the Lord says. Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house you will build for me? Where will my resting place be? Has not my hand made all these things, and so they came into being? That's from Isaiah 66, verses 1 through 2. In the Christian scriptures, we find this. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. That's from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. I am praying not only for these disciples, but also for all who will ever believe in me through their message. I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one, as you are in me, Father, and I am in you. And may they be in us, so that the world will believe you sent me. I have given them the glory you gave me, so they may be one as we are one. I am in them, and you are in me. May they experience such perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. Father, I want these whom you have given me to be with me where I am. That's from the Gospel of John, chapter 17, verses 20 through 23. He is the God who made the world. He also made everything in it. He is the Lord of heaven and earth. God did this so that people would seek him, and perhaps they would reach out for him and find him. They would find him even though he is not far from any of us. In him we live and move and exist. As some of your own poets have also said, we are his children. Acts 17, verses 24 through 28. And this is from Islam. The East and the West belong to God. Whichever way you turn, there is the face of God. God is all-pervading and all-knowing. That's from Surah 2, Ayah al-Baqarah, verse 115. Do you not see that God is glorified by all those in the heavens and the earth, even the birds as they soar? Each instinctively knows their manner of prayer and glorification, and God has perfect knowledge of all they do. To God alone belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and to God is the final return. That's from Surah 24, An-Nur, verses 41 and 42. And here's material from the Baha'i scriptures. After passing through the valley of knowledge, which is the last plane of limitation, the wayfarer cometh to the valley of unity, and drinketh from the cup of the Absolute, and gazeth on the manifestations of oneness. In this station he pierceth the veils of plurality, fleeth from the worlds of the flesh, and ascendeth into the heaven of singleness. With the ear of God he heareth, with the eye of God he beholdeth the mysteries of divine creation. That's from the Seven Valleys and the Four Valleys, page 18. So we can now see more clearly what the Short Talk Bulletin on the Mystic Tie intends by concluding with Claudy's description of the craft as a way to God. It suggests that the various aspects of our shared fraternal experience and the bonds we aim to establish and improve through them are rooted in, inspired by, and reflections of union with God. In short, the word tie expresses union, and mystic clarifies that it is of a divine nature. Thus, in its grandest sense, the phrase mystic tie expresses the mysterious oneness of the incomprehensible all with the ineffable one. The followers of our friend and brother Pythagoras represented this unity of creation and its creator with the circumpunct, a point within a circle, which has an important place in the builder's art. Consider the following words from Sickles' General Ahiman Rezon of 1871, reflecting on the Pythagorean interpretation of the circumpunct. The number 1 was the point within the circle, and denoted the central fire, or God, because it is the beginning and ending, the first and the last. It signified also love, concord, piety, and friendship, because it is so connected that it cannot be divided into parts. End quote. Those words speak not only to the cosmological significance of the circumpunct, but also to its social meaning, and thus to its representation of the meanings we are exploring with the phrase mystic tie. The idea that human beings can realize the mystic tie, the indissoluble bond with deity, each other, and all, is also not unique to Masonry's monotheistic background. Indeed, what we now propose as this more complete understanding of the craft's mystic tie can be found across a wide variety of spiritual traditions. Let's begin with Navajo tradition. And please note that for the sake of brevity, I am reading an abridged version of the lyrics in this traditional song, Hojoni, which means beauty, harmony, and peace. Hojoni. The earth, its life am I. The earth, its feet are my feet. The earth, its legs are my legs. The earth, its body is my body. The earth, its thoughts are my thoughts. The earth, its speech is my speech. The earth, its down feathers are my down feathers. The sky, its life am I. The mountains, their life am I. Rain Mountain, its life am I. Changing woman, her life am I. The sun, its life am I. Talking God, his life am I. House God, his life am I. White corn, its life am I. Yellow corn, its life am I. Corn pollen, its life am I. The corn beetle, its life am I. Hojoni. That's from Songs of Creating People, also known as Its Life Am I. And here's something we find in Hinduism. This is the teaching of Odalaka to Shvetaketu, his son. So, through spiritual wisdom, dear one, we come to know that all life is one. In the beginning was only being, one without a second. Out of himself he brought forth the cosmos and entered into everything in it. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. That's from the Chandogyoga Upanishad. In Buddhism we find this. Do not err in this matter of self and other. Everything is Buddha without exception. Here is that immaculate and final stage where thought is pure in its true nature. The fair tree of thought that knows no duality spreads through the triple world. It bears the flower and fruit of compassion, and its name is service of others. And that's from Saraha. And from Taoism we have this. Master Tung Kuo asked Chuang Tzu, this thing called the Way, where does it exist? Chuang Tzu said, there's no place it does not exist. Come, said Master Tung Kuo, you must be more specific. It is in the ant. As low a thing as that? It is in the panic grass. But that is lower still. It is in the tiles and shards. How can it be so low? It is in the piss and dung. Chuang-Tzu. And from Neoplatonism we find this. The divine soul gives itself to every point in this vast body of creation, and vouchsafes its being to every part, great and small, though these parts are divided in space and manner of disposition, and though some are opposed to each other, others dependent on each other. But the soul is not divided, nor does it split up in order to give life to each individual. All things live by the soul in its entirety. It is all present everywhere. The heaven, vast and various as it is one by the power of the soul, and by it is this universe of ours divine. The sun, too, is divine, and so are the stars, and we ourselves, if we are worth anything, are so on account of the soul. And that's from Plotinus. Before we move on from consideration of Claudi's wonderfully poignant poem, we should note that its final words assert that Masonry offers a mystic way of oneness to, quote, common men, end quote. That point is significant because, as Andrew Harvey has written in The Essential Mystics, The Soul's Journey into Truth, quote, the word mystic may mislead or intimidate some people. The prestige accorded to it has traditionally been so exalted that they feel such heightened perception and joy belong to and are attainable by only a few chosen human beings. This is far from the case. Mystical experience is always available. Like the divine grace, it is to any who really want it, and all human beings are given in the course of their lives glimpses into the heart of the real, which they are free to pursue or forget. End quote. The Builder's Art offers an alternative to ways of encountering the great mystery that have typically seemed accessible only to the most elite ranks of erudite philosophers, devout monks, or world-renouncing hermits. Masonry can be a mystical quest for ordinary people leading ordinary lives, and yet it has the potential to bring them to extraordinary experiences, understandings, and realizations. This view of the craft as a way of communion with deity is not a rare oddity in philosophical perspectives on Masonry, as evidenced by the following statements. This union is symbolized by the familiar conjunction of the square and the compasses. The square is the emblem of the soul, the compasses of the spirit which indwells that soul. At first the Mason sees the points of the compasses concealed behind the square, and, as he progresses, their points emerge from that concealment until both become superimposed upon the square. Thus is indicated the progressive subordination of the soul and the corresponding coming forward of the ultimate spirit into personal consciousness, so that the Mason can work with both those points, thus becoming an efficient builder in the spirit and rendering the circle of his own being complete by attaining conscious alliance with his ultimate and only true self. And that's from W. L. Wilmshurst, The Masonic Initiation. When properly applied to a person's life, toleration and love of others develop, creating a true feeling of brotherhood and a oneness with God. That's a quote from Samuel L. Cochran's Hidden Masonic Lessons, published by the Virginia Research Lodge, number 1777. The Freemason will only find his goal when his perception passes through the visible order, and he is raised to the spiritual reality which exists at its heart, the link and key to which lies in his own heart, which, as he learns in the first degree, must first be true, and then thus the Mason is centered and may partake in the divine presence concentrated therein. Thus, While in the physical realm, he is in harmony with the spiritual law behind the visible universe. He is at one with the great architect's design. When the Mason achieves mystic union with God, in an allegorical sense, the light-darkness duality, the checkered floor, disappears. The union can no longer be described. And that's from Giuliano di Bernardo, past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Italy, in his work entitled Enlightenment from the Ritual. In Freemasonry, the lost word has become a symbol of the never-ending search for light or truth, which is another way to say the search for unity or oneness with God. That's from the Grand Lodge of Ohio's Master Mason Education Script. When we find Masonry identified as to its source with God, the reference, however unconscious, is to that original and positive knowledge with which the mystics have endowed the archetypal man when he was first differentiated from deity, but still enjoyed the immersion of his individual soul in the divine consciousness, and thus knew all things in God. From this point of view, the Masonic object of research, mystically interpreted, would be, for such speculations, simply this primeval knowledge, and the system embodied by Masonry would be a process for its recovery. That's from Arthur Edward Waite, Studies in Mysticism. The mature Mason has learned through the craft that man is, without any doubt whatever, an eternal being burdened with mortality, wending a tortuous path through that mortality to a reward beyond his comprehension, a union with God. That's by J.S. Woods in his work, The Man in Masonry, the Character of a Mature Mason. The Masonic link to the Kabbalistic tradition becomes more evident when the initiatory aspect of the Hiramic legend is emphasized. At the core of the Jewish Kabbalah lies the fundamental aim of the individual experience of the Godhead, or Unio Mystica. It is this fundamental aim that links the two traditions together in a functional manner. Both traditions focus on a direct identification with or experience of the Godhead. And this is from Henrik Bogdan and J.A.M. Snoke in the Handbook of Freemasonry. The goal of both sciences, Kabbalah and Freemasonry, is the same: that the entire mankind becomes better, ultimately perfect, to realize the ultimate plan of creation and unite with God. That's from Nebojsa Nikolic in Kabbalah and Freemasonry, Becoming One with God. If we dissect Freemasonry, we will find a quest for something that has been lost, passing through a regular series of what may be called expansions of consciousness toward union with God. Man himself, being made in the image of God, is therefore capable, through the development of full knowledge of himself as such, of union with God. And that's from Reverend J.K. Cleland and his work, The Masonic Trinity and the Way of the Cross. The Royal Secret of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, or Equilibrium, prepares us to understand the Holy Doctrine. This doctrine, simply stated, is that the human spirit is a ray of the divine light. As it was written in the Psalms, "All of you are children of the Most High." Thus, God dwells in the human soul, and the divine intermingles with the human. God is near at hand with his creatures, not afar off and inaccessible, but embracing all with his love. The wise and good of all ages and religions have been close to God and his kingdom of heaven. Therefore the holy doctrine everywhere taught that the soul could be enlightened and invigorated and made to resemble God, whose image it is. By this the faithful are at last to unite again with him of whom they are an emanation. And that's from the Scottish Rite Ritual Monitor and Guide. One of the most common mystical insights shared among spiritual people of all times, an insight now affirmed by physicists, is that our notion of absolute separateness is an illusion. Instead, our deepest thinkers and clearest seers insist that we are all one, that everything in existence is intimately interconnected in countless ways, and that we share in a common essence. The use of the term illusion in this context is not meant to be merely dismissive, as if to say the experience of separateness may be discounted as trivial or meaningless. Neither should those whose awareness is entirely bound within this illusion be regarded with indifference, disdain, or prideful pity. It is a powerful, pervasive, and persistent misperception of reality that is quite understandable for many reasons. Even mystics who have known transcendent experiences of unity must still manage this illusion. It is apparently woven into the fabric of human existence. To begin giving the matter further contemplation, consider the following quotes, taken from a variety of individuals representing different traditions and areas of expertise. A human being is a part of the whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical illusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening the circle of understanding and compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. That's from the physicist Albert Einstein. We are here to awaken from our illusion of separateness. Human beings are not separate from each other or nature. We are totally interrelated, and our actions have consequences to all. What we do to others, we do to ourselves. What we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. That's by the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh. Identification with your mind creates an opaque screen of concepts, labels, images, words, judgments, and definitions that blocks all true relationship. It comes between you and yourself, between you and your fellow man and woman, between you and nature, between you and God. It is this screen of thought that creates the illusion of separateness, the illusion that there is you and a totally separate other. You then forget the essential fact that underneath the level of physical appearances and separate forms, you are one with all that is. That's from Eckhart Tolle, author of The Power of Now. The first piece, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers, and when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that this center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. Those words are from the Lakota holy man, Black Elk. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. And that was written by the civil rights leader, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. All differences in this world are of degree, and not of kind, because oneness is the secret of everything. Those are words from the Hindu philosopher Swami Vivekananda, who was also a Freemason. The God who existed before any religion counts on you to make the oneness of the human family known and celebrated. And that's from the human rights activist, Bishop Desmond Tutu. The fundamental delusion of humanity is to suppose that I am here and you are out there. Words from Zen master Yasutani Roshi. The whole idea of compassion is based on a keen awareness of the interdependence of all these living beings, which are all part of one another and all involved in one another. It's from the Trappist monk Thomas Merton. Wisdom is nothing but a preparation of the soul, a capacity, a secret art of thinking, feeling, and breathing thoughts of unity at every moment of life. And that's by the Nobel Prize winner Hermann Hesse. Different authorities and traditions offer different explanations for how the illusion of separation arises. For now, we reference the book of Genesis because it has such a prominent place in the ritual of most Masonic jurisdictions, and because its myth of creation and the subsequent fall of humanity is familiar to most Masons. As we do so, it is recommended that you try to not be too literal about the myth's temporal language, its reference to a past unfolding of events for persons no longer alive. Rather, consider that it describes processes that are always ongoing. The first word in Genesis is the Hebrew Bereshith, commonly translated as in the beginning. Many mystics and theologians find it significant that the first word on the first act of God starts with the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. This fact is taken as a hint of that which is uncreated, which preexists creation, represented by the first Hebrew letter, Aleph. Thus, beyond the beginning, unlimited by time and space, is the nameless, faceless, indescribable no thing that is the mysterious source and ground of all. Many of us call this one God, or in Masonic terms, the great architect of the universe. In some way that defies our complete understanding, apart from creation of the universe as we know it, within that transcendent monad, there is the will or an intention for the freedom of otherness to be. Some of humanity's creation myths try to explain why this happens, yet others leave it as a mystery. The story of Genesis does not overtly explain the divine's motive for creation. We are only given a mythic beginning of space-time in which the great architect first creates the distinction of heaven and earth. From this basic duality of heaven and earth arises all the amazing diversity in the tapestry of creation. Furthermore, all of it is declared good, which is to say that, at least so far, things are as they should be. There is an incalculable multitude of things, but their diversity does not obscure the fact of their common source, their intimate interconnectedness, their overarching and completely integrated and harmonious unity. Despite the multiplicity of forms in creation, careful reading of Scripture and first-hand knowledge of the mystical experiences they are based upon reveals that all is one, Everything and everyone lives, moves, and has their being in the same ultimate reality, the Absolute, or God. There is nowhere that the One is not. Yet, in our divinely endowed freedom to pursue the depths of otherness, we can suffer a kind of intoxication and thus fail to perceive our unity with the One and all. The self-other dichotomy becomes a veil on unity, a distraction from the wholeness of the mystic tie, and is thus distorted into the illusion of an absolute separateness. The development of this illusion of separation is one way to understand the symbolism of Adam's lonely wish for a companion, temptation for knowledge of good and evil, eating the forbidden fruit, trying to hide from God, and the consequence of ejection from Eden. In each of these developments, the distinction between heaven and earth is further magnified until it is an opposition of two disconnected worlds, or at least seems to be, one pure and one corrupt. Even so, behind the veil of this myth of humanity's fall is the truth that it is not actually a departure from God's presence and grace, but rather it is the loss of an intimate awareness of God, a descent into forgetfulness of our indissoluble unity with ultimate reality. That illusion of separation and its consequences are, at least among humans, infectious and self-propagating. And perhaps this provides the greatest significance to the popular concept of an original sin that is passed on from one generation to the next. When we are completely aware of our communion with the great architect and all of creation, we have no needs. Needs only arise from the desire to either perpetuate the illusion of separateness or to overcome it and more fully know our unity with the one and all. Desire is thereby revealed as more fundamental than need in our existence. Even the need to survive disappears if one either no longer desires to live or recognizes that our existence transcends our physical and personal survival. Our illusion of separation is at odds with our latent memory or intuitive knowledge of the mystic tie's unity. It is a dissonance, an incongruity felt by us as incompleteness. It is the root of all uneasiness, all discomfort with self and others. In Genesis, this uncomfortable feeling of lack and need goes hand in hand with the illusion of separateness, as revealed in all the sufferings of Adam and Eve and their offspring. Out of our deeply buried knowledge of unity as truth, desires emerge to eliminate the discomfort that accompanies the illusion of lacking and needing. Yet because such desires are felt and addressed within the illusory context of separation, they are distorted into desires to protect, defend, and even expand self as a separate entity, because self is perceived as the most immediate thing and thus seems least illusory. Acting in response to the feeling of lack and the desires to protect, defend, and expand self, we then attempt to relieve the discomfort of this illusion through acquiring and possessing others, people, things, ideas, experiences, etc., with the mistaken notion that we need them to fill the perceived emptiness. Thus, we can ironically perpetuate and compound the illusion of self's separateness, which in turn further fuels the desire for more acquisition and possession. Here is the core dynamic of all greed, gluttony, wantonness, and psychological addiction. Others acting to acquire and possess in their own misguided self-interest, interfere with our acquiring and possessing, even completely preventing or undoing our acquiring and possessing. Rather than collaborate with all for mutual benefit, we conclude that some others must be outperformed, if not eliminated, for self and those it identifies with to protect, defend, and expand ourselves as fully as possible. Here is the fundamental mechanism of all envy, jealousy, cruelty, and war. Every step reinforces and compounds the previous steps, and thus our energies spiral out into an ever larger, more complex, and more unmanageable chain of illusions and consequences. Yet, every step also offers the possibility of awakening to these illusions and more completely remembering the mystic tie, even if it is only because one's house of cards finally falls from its own weight and instability. Some people insist that the basic phenomenon of otherness is either a cosmic mistake or a flaw in the spirit of humanity. The apparent fact of duality, the self-other binary that is at the very crux of creation, is judged as the fundamental evil that makes all of creation corrupt, and thus some people regard this world as a kind of prison to be endured. Hand in hand with that view may also be a sense of justification for indulging our vices or disregarding any care or concern for others, if not both. Alternately, this way of thinking may lead to the militant pursuit of an idealized world in which all distinctions of otherness, and thus all differences, particularly among human beings, are eliminated. It is, in effect, a misguided attempt to eliminate diversity and establish universal conformity to some imagined state of utopian homogeneity, which may be of either the political left or right, either religious or secular. Instead, this creation myth suggests that the primary problem is our intoxication with the illusion of separation. And the authorities of many traditions promise that it is possible to overcome or be delivered from this problem. It might seem paradoxical, but they call us to return to awareness of unity while still participating in duality. Lucid dreaming is an apt analogy for a state of being in which one has awareness of the mystic tie's unity while still participating in duality. In lucid dreaming, one knows one is dreaming while the dream is happening. It is a state less enmeshed in the illusions of separateness between self and the various others experienced in the dream, and yet the dream and one's presence in it may continue to manifest. Anyone who experiences dream lucidity knows what a liberating moment it can be. What may have, only seconds before, seemed like an unbearable nightmare can suddenly be experienced with a light heart, even a sense of humor, not unlike a carnival house of horrors. More pleasant dreams can have their beauty magnified as the wonder and awe of their mysterious artistry is more deeply appreciated. Imagine what it is like to realize that the mind is somehow mysteriously creating and sustaining an entire world around you, and with incredible vibrancy and detail. A nightmare can be completely transformed into an experience of peace and serenity. A monotonous repetition of typical events can be seized as an opportunity to break the laws of physics and joyously fly in the air or peacefully breathe underwater. Almost anything is possible, and no ugliness seems quite as genuinely threatening to you or any other in the dream. Mystical insight, enlightenment, revelation, or whatever you want to call it, can impart a similar liberation with our presence in the so-called waking world. From a mystical perspective, our waking world is like a shared dream in which all our seemingly individual minds are participating with a consensus, both conscious and unconscious, about how things work. Individuals who become lucid in this world attain some measure of liberation from those rules, and thus find greater freedom to consciously enjoy their unity with others and to artistically shape the world for themselves and others. And on that note, here's a poem that I share in this book. It's entitled Awaken Dreamer. Awaken, dreamer, awaken. The dawn of a new day draws near. Awaken still within your dream to the call that none but you can hear. For though many souls may fancy that they are dreamlessly aware, the most lucid know that the waking world is but the dream that we most share. Our flickering reality is a fire composed of many fires, each of us its co-creators, according to our own desires. So awaken, dreamer, awaken, for the spirit in you revives. Awaken, still within your dream, and thus the new day's dawn arrives. Just as one can fade in and out of lucidity within a dream, we can do so in the waking world. One moment we can remember the mystic tie and enjoy our freedom in greater measure, and the very next moment again fall into the drunken dream of illusory separation. Therefore, the mechanisms of lucidity are, to some extent, apparently not entirely within our conscious control, at least for most of us. On the other hand, the desire to experience lucidity and the intention to maintain it do seem to make a significant difference. If the great sages and seers of history have spoken truthfully, then there is not only a cave of shadows, but there are also paths of lucidity, time-tested ways of joyfully experiencing and exploring what we Masons call the mystic tie. As noted, Genesis does not say why the Creator creates, only that God does so and regards it as good. We can therefore surmise that creation and our otherness are not evils to be destroyed, mistakes to be undone, or a prison to be escaped. The Genesis myth further suggests that we are created in God's image to be the Creator's partners in creation, with the potential to tend the great mystery's garden while directly aware of the Absolute's presence in all things and at all times. In other words, we have the innate capacity to be more conscious participants in manifesting the monad's infinite possibilities in the all, to be lucid co-builders of this great multidimensional temple. In addition, we learn that we are endowed with freedom, for without it, we would be severely limited in our ability to intentionally transform things from one state into something new and different. Yet that freedom also makes it possible for us to forget and ignore our mystic tie with the one and all. So, when we ask why we experience duality, perhaps what we're really seeking is some understanding of what we should be doing with our otherness and freedom, as if that answer lies external to our own deepest and truest desires. If we are indeed created to be free co-creators, then the more meaningful question is this. In your heart of hearts, undeceived by the illusion of separation, lucidly aware of the mystic tie, what would you want to do with your otherness and freedom? We have seen that Masonry's symbol of the mystic tie has profound possibilities of meaning, far beyond the feelings and commitments of sincere friendship. Most compelling are the suggestions that it represents the oneness of all things with their Creator, that we can become more aware of and illuminated by that unity, and that Masonry offers us a path by which to do so. There are many more questions and implications we could continue to explore, such as what this view of the mystic tie suggests about our perceptions of good and evil, morality and immorality, and what they mean in every aspect of our lives, personal, social, political, and environmental. So, in closing, you are welcome to reflect upon a poem that arose from contemplation of the mystic tie. Tracing the mystic tie, the mind moving the hand holding the compass tracing the circle and the central point within, the surface upon which they appear. The meaning of each is only complete in connection with every other. Fully knowing any is knowing all. Such knowing is love. Loving the one, loving the all. All is love. Love is the one tracing the mystic tie. Thanks for joining me in this consideration of the mystic tie and spiritual union, which is chapter 1 of the mystic tie and the Way of Oneness. If you are interested in the edifice I raised on that foundation, you can purchase the book new or used through most online booksellers. I wish you more light, life, and love.